the land of the free locks up more of its own citizens than almost every authoritarian regime on Earth. And a disproportionate number.
Gotta get that free labor. We gotta find a way to keep that free labor going. That's how America is able to get so dominant in the first place. Off the backs of slavery and off the backs of black people and off the backs of exploitation. You feel me? They won't find a way to exploit somebody. You just better hope that you're not part of the group that they choose. Straight up. It's your boy Online Davo, and we back with another video. Look, we got a video by Holy Kool-Aid. Why the rest of the world thinks Americans are brainwashed. Now, I have never seen a video of his before, but his title caught my attention, and if I'm gonna be real, and if I'm gonna admit it, I was brainwashed also. I used to be brainwashed. You know what I'm saying? I wasn't woke. I'll admit that. I wasn't woke, but I'm slowly and surely learning. And that's all we can do. So let's get into the video and let's see how and what way are Americans brainwashed. Come on.
There is some wild propaganda that Americans are taught and don't even realize it's propaganda. Now, I should preface by stating that I am an American. I love my country. My family goes all the way back to Jamestown. My grandfather fought in World War II. I was born in Los Angeles. I went to university in Texas. I was raised singing the Star-Spangled Banner and reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. I'm about as American as it gets. Well, besides these guys. But I've also spent the last decade studying cults, dogma, and religious extremism, and thought control. And as someone who has lived in over a dozen countries and traveled to more than 35 of them, I've started noticing some extremely troubling forms of propaganda that Americans are taught from childhood. Things that people in free, developed, democratic countries overseas find absolutely bizarre, and things that most Americans never question, because we've been marinating in it since birth. And look, every country has its own brand of propaganda. I'm not trying to pretend that America is uniquely evil here, but what makes American propaganda so effective is that most of us don't even realize it exists. We think that propaganda is something that happens in North Korea or Soviet bases, posters of dictators and state-controlled media. We don't recognize it when it's sung at football games and printed on a bumper sticker. So here are 7 forms of propaganda that you probably didn't even realize that you grew up with if you're an American.
Okay, cool little intro. Kool-Aid, I see you. Let's lock in. What's he finna show us? Because
Number 1, US-centric education. American history is extraordinarily short. We are talking a few centuries compared to civilizations that span millennia. And yet, if you grew up in an American public school, you would think that the United States was the center of human history. Geography classes often aren't taught at all, and world history courses, when they are taught, are basically how does the rest of the planet relate to America. The Vietnam War is taught as a war for freedom. Westward expansion is framed as brave pioneers taming a wild frontier, not as the systematic displacement and genocide of indigenous peoples who've been living there for thousands of years. World War II, Americans swoop in and save the day, with little mention of the roughly 27 million Soviets who died on the Eastern Front doing the bulk of the fighting against Hitler. Now, compare that to how other countries teach history. In much of Europe, kids...
I'm not gonna lie, so far he keeping it real. Because I could even know when I was growing up, and the type of history and stuff I learned, it was like very American based. It wasn't much into like, you know, Europe and shit like that, you know? And I wasn't really able to dive deep into history. Or maybe I didn't have that interest until after I got out of high school and after I learned the importance of it and stuff like that. And speaking to people in real life and knowing how it all connects to present day. So that's when I was able to dive into history and start learning, you know? But so far he cooking because, whew.
Actually learn global history. They study African kingdoms, Asian dynasties, Middle Eastern contributions to science and mathematics. They learn about colonialism for what it actually is, not heroic adventure, but exploitation. When I talk to Americans who are traveling abroad for the first time, I'm often shocked at how little they know about the rest of the world. And that's not by accident. A nation which doesn't teach its citizens about the world produces citizens who don't question their own nation's role in it. Number 2, the Cold War binary. If you grew up in America anytime after 1950, you absorbed one of the most effective propaganda frameworks ever constructed. Communism equals evil, capitalism equals freedom. Full stop. No nuance, no discussion,
Right.
just a clean binary where one side wears white hats and the other side is a cartoon villain. What they don't teach you is that during the Cold War, the United States overthrew democratically elected governments around the world simply because the governments leaned left. In 1953, the CIA helped orchestrate a coup against Iran's democratically elected prime minister, Mohammad Mossadegh, because he nationalized Iran's oil industry. In 1954, the US toppled Guatemala's president.
Hey, I tell you one thing. When it comes to that oil, America don't play. Hey, America don't play when it comes to that oil, boy. They gonna come. If they even get a whisper, they hear a whisper in the seven seas. If they hear anything about you trying to nationalize oil, you trying to keep that oil to yourself, you wouldn't have control of your own resources. Are you dumb? Huh? Why would you do that when I can have control of it? Just put it in my hands and I'm gonna take care of it, all right? Don't question it. Cause you know what happened to the last nigga that questioned it. That's what America be doing. But then they ran into some people that wasn't going for that, as we see currently with, the Iran war and Trump, having our economy fucked up and all of our, not all, but soldiers out there dying and getting all type of shit going on. So I'm telling you, man, America done did some shit, bruh. And it's finally catching up to him.
President Arbenz because his land reform threatened the profits of United Fruit Company. In 1973, the CIA backed the overthrow of Chile's Salvador Allende, a democratically elected socialist, and replaced him with Augusto Pinochet, a brutal military dictator who tortured and murdered thousands. The Congo, Brazil, Indonesia, it's all the same playbook. America claimed to be defending democracy while systematically destroying it in order to exploit country after country. This all is recent history, and this binary thinking is still alive and well. If you suggest universal healthcare in America, watch how quickly someone calls you a communist. Propose free public university education, something that dozens of thriving democracies already provide, and suddenly you're a Marxist. The Cold War ended over 30 years ago, but the propaganda framework it built is still alive and kicking. If you want to start breaking free from propaganda, one of the most effective and powerful things that you can do is to expose yourself to other cultures, other perspectives, and other languages. My dad was a language teacher, and I grew up multilingual, and I can tell you firsthand that learning another language doesn't just teach you new words, it gives you an entirely different lens through which to view the world. Which is why I love today's sponsor, LingoPie. LingoPie takes a completely different approach to language learning.
Hey, shout out to you, bro. Get to your, you know what I'm saying? Do your thing, brother, but you gotta get through this. Damn. Here you go. The land of the free myth. Come on.
Land of the free myth. Americans are told from birth that the United States is the freest country on earth. It's in the songs, it's on the bumper stickers. It's baked into the nation's identity so deeply that questioning it feels almost heretical. But is it true? Well, let's look at the data. On the Reporters Without Borders Press Freedom Index, the US doesn't crack the top 50. It ranks 57th in the world, just below Sierra Leone. On the Cato Institute's Human Freedom Index, and keep in mind, the Cato Institute is a libertarian think tank, not some leftist outfit, multiple countries outrank America in both personal and economic freedom. The United States incarcerates more people per capita than almost every other country on the planet. More than China, more than Russia, Iran, or North Korea. The land of the free locks up more of its own citizens than almost every authoritarian regime on earth. And a disproportionate number.
Gotta get that free labor. We gotta find a way to keep that free labor going. That's how America is able to get so dominant in the first place. Off the backs of slavery and off the backs of black people and off the backs of exploitation. You feel me? They're gonna find a way to exploit somebody. You just better hope that you're not part of the group that they choose. Straight up.
Number of them are Black and Latino. This is not what freedom looks like. It is a system designed to warehouse people. But it goes deeper. A handful of corporations control vast swaths of American industry, from media to agriculture to healthcare and tech. These corporations aren't just influencing a little bit of government policy, they're writing the policy. Politicians respond to donors and lobbyists, not constituents. Hell, there was a Princeton study which actually found that the preferences of American voters have a near zero statistical impact on whether a policy gets passed or not. But The preferences of
What?
economic elites, big businesses, and organized interest groups are strongly correlated with what policies actually get passed into law. In other words, your politicians don't care what you want, unless you're a billionaire. Elections are largely bought and paid for. Gerrymandering carves up districts so that the politicians can choose their voters rather than the other way around like it should be in a free democracy. Voter suppression laws target communities least likely to vote for the people in power, and the two-party system has become a self-reinforcing trap that incentivizes extremism over representation. We are taught, and this is hardcore propaganda, that America's electoral system is the best. Well, except when our guy loses, of course. But there is a much better electoral system. It is called ranked choice voting. And the only people who prefer our current system over ranked choice are those who are financially incentivized against freedom and democracy. Here's how it works. With ranked choice, instead of picking just one candidate and hoping for the best, you rank out your preferences with your top choice at the top and your least choice at the bottom. If no one wins a majority, the candidate with the fewest votes gets eliminated, and the people who voted for them have those votes redistributed to their second choice. You keep going until someone actually has majority support. It rewards candidates who appeal broadly rather than those who energize the extremes. It reduces what's known as the spoiler effect and creates a better reflection of.
See, that's the thing. I heard about the ranked choice voting. I heard about that before, but I never really looked too deep into it about how it worked and all that, because it's not. It's one of those things that people talk about as an alternative to the current system, but it's also kind of like I never cared too much about it. I guess it hasn't entered my lens of research yet. So it sounds like a good idea though. On the surface, it sounds good.
What voters actually want. There are already several US cities and states which have already adopted ranked choice voting, and it's the norm in countries like Australia and Ireland. But most Americans have never even heard of it, because the two parties currently in power have zero incentive to tell you about the system that would threaten their grip, and they have every incentive to criticize it.
You should run aggressively against ranked choice voting. It is a big...
Number 4, America's stupidly big...
Hey, count on Charlie Kirk for saying the dumbest shit you ever heard in your fucking life. Count on this idiot to tell you something that goes against your interests. Okay, just a mouthpiece for the elites, man. That's all he is.
Aggressively against ranked choice voting. It is a big...
Number 4, America's stupidly big military budget. The US spends more on its military than the next 10 countries combined. Let that sink in. More than China, Russia, the UK, Saudi Arabia, Germany, France, Japan, South Korea, and Australia put together. Now, Americans are taught that this spending is about protecting freedom and defending the free world. And sure, a reasonable national defense is necessary, but the vast majority of this budget doesn't go to defense. It funds over 750 military bases in at least 80 countries. It funds interventions, regime changes, drone programs, and the maintenance of a global military empire. Meanwhile, American roads are crumbling, bridges are collapsing, the healthcare system bankrupts families, teachers buy their own classroom supplies, student debt has...
That is so crazy. Like, when I was a student, I didn't really think too much of it, but imagine you have to buy supplies for you to do your job, because the education system is so fucked up, and they're not putting no type of money into it. You gotta take money out your paycheck. You already get paid dog shit. You already get paid less than you should be getting paid. Like, what? Hey, shout out to the teachers that really care, man, because in this economy, you actively choosing to be a teacher, you gotta love that shit, man. I'm telling you, you gotta love that shit, boy. But that's wild, bro. And we can have free healthcare, free college, free education. Like, oh my gosh, bro. Free daycare. We can have all this nice stuff. But it's like the propaganda wheel just keeps on turning, man. It keeps on turning, and people keep on buying into it. Even when they get shown a different alternative that they would prefer, or, you know, they think they wouldn't prefer it, but really they would. They just want to be on their side. It's crazy. And also you got the thing of, it wasn't free for me, so why should it be free for you? We got those people also. It's crazy, bro. This country is so fucked.
past 1.7 trillion, and millions of Americans can't afford basic prescriptions. Other countries, meanwhile, invest their resources differently. Universal health care, free or affordable higher education, robust public transit, paid parental leave, affordable childcare, and as a result, their citizens are measurably healthier, better educated, less stressed, and by many metrics, happier. This isn't speculative, it's what the data consistently shows. Historians have a term for what happens when an empire pours its resources into military expansion while its domestic foundations rot. Imperial overstretch. And it's how empires collapse. The Romans did it, the British did it, the Soviets did it, and if you look at the trajectory, America is running headfirst over the same cliff. Number 5, the Pledge of Allegiance. Having children stand up every single morning, place their hands over their heart, face a flag, and recite a loyalty oath in unison is, by any outside standard, one of the creepiest things about America. I'm not saying this to be edgy. When you describe this practice to people from other democracies, their jaws hit the floor. They associate it with the kind of thing that you would see authoritarian regimes do, not in a country that calls itself the leader of the free world. Because think about
That is actually, I remember they tried to make us do that shit, bro. I think we did do it a few times, but then I think around that time it became like you didn't have to stand up for it if you didn't want to. And ever since then, I never stood up. Fuck, I ain't gonna lie. The only time I stood up was during my football games. You feel me? That's when I put the hand over. You know what I'm saying? But nigga, I ain't doing all that. There can you see? I'm not doing all that shit, bro. Like what the fuck? Like y'all ain't been treating me that good for me to be singing your hard praises. Y'all still got my people fucked up. Y'all still got my people living in destitute. Y'all not putting no type of money into my black community. You think I'm gonna pledge allegiance to this country? Hell nah. Fuck that. Y'all gotta earn this allegiance. You feel me?
what the pledge actually is. It is a feudal fealty oath. It is a declaration of personal loyalty to a state. Now, I understand why elected officials and military personnel swear oaths of service. That makes sense. They're accepting a position of public responsibility. But requiring a 6-year-old to pledge allegiance to
crazy,
a flag before they can even spell allegiance, it's brainwashing. Like, you realize the founding fathers would be horrified by this, right? These were men who literally threw off the yoke of another red, white, and blue flag when it represented tyranny. They understood and wrote extensively about the fact that it is the duty of every free person to question authority and resist tyranny, not just pledge blind loyalty to a piece of cloth. The entire American experiment was built on the idea that governments derive their power from the consent of the governed, and that when a government fails its people, those people have the right and the obligation to challenge it. This is the entire reasoning behind the Second Amendment. Creating mindless, loyal zombies out of children is the exact opposite of what the founders fought for. And yet, suggest that we stop doing this in our children's schools and watch how fast you get called un-American. Number 6, the myth that America was founded as a Christian nation. If you've ever driven through the American South, or honestly, large parts of the Midwest and rural America, you've probably seen billboards saying things like, hell is real, abortion is murder, and Jesus saves. They line the highways like wallpaper, so pervasive that most people stop noticing them. Religious messaging in America is so saturated into the culture that it becomes invisible, which is exactly what makes it so effective. But here's what a lot of Americans don't know. The United States was never a Christian nation. The founders were explicit about this. The Constitution makes zero mention of Christianity or Jesus. The First Amendment enshrines the separation of church and state. The Treaty of Tripoli, unanimously ratified by the Senate in 1797 and signed by President John Adams, states in very plain language that the government of the United States is not, in any sense.
Hey, now that's crazy, bro. It's funny because how it's in plain day is like, yo, this isn't no Christian country, you feel me? This isn't no religion associated with this country. And then you have people, the president, you know what I'm saying, and his people of his cabinet, you know, making it seem as if it is. You know, it's like the way that these people be lying is so nasty. Like, oh my gosh.
It's founded on the Christian religion. That is not my interpretation. That is a legally binding document from the founding generation.
They don't care.
Where did the Christian nation myth come from? Well, in keeping with the rest of this video, propaganda. Cold War propaganda to be specific. Under God was added to the Pledge of Allegiance in 1954. In God We Trust was added to the paper currency in 1957, and adopted as the national motto the year before. Our original motto, E Pluribus Unum, is more about plurality. Out of many, one. Both of these actions were deliberate moves to contrast the United States against godless communism. They weren't ancient traditions passed down by the founders. They're marketing decisions which were made by politicians in the 1950s. And now, barely 70 years later, millions of Americans will swear on a stack of Bibles that this country was founded as a Christian nation, and that anyone who says otherwise is attacking their heritage. The conflation of patriotism with Christianity is itself a product of propaganda, and it's one of the most dangerous because it means that questioning religion in America isn't just seen as blasphemy, it's treason. Number 7, American exceptionalism. This one is huge, the one that ties all the rest of it together. American exceptionalism isn't just this belief that America is different, it's a belief that America is inherently superior, better, divinely favored, the greatest country that God ever put on this earth. And it functions not just as a belief, but as a social enforcement mechanism. Because in America, criticism of the country is treated as betrayal. Point out that other nations have better healthcare outcomes, and you're told, well, why don't you just move there? So
And that's their favorite line. Why don't you just go? Why don't you just go over there? It's like, no, nigga, this is my country. You see, I will argue I'm more patriot than you are, because I'm able to criticize my country and see it for what it is. You know what I'm saying? That's just like you dating a girl and you never call her out on when she on some bullshit. Do you even really fuck with her? You know what I'm saying? Like, how do you really even care about the relationship if she keep on doing some stuff you don't like, but you just staying quiet because it's gonna cause some disturbance within the relationships? That's how I feel about America. You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna call out America when America on that bullshit. And America been on that bullshit since America started, since America became America. You feel me? They been on that bullshit. You know? And it's like, they try to do all this, oh, you're unpatriotic, you're un-American, da da da. No, nigga, you're just a dick eater. You feel me? You're just sucking off America meat. Now listen, you know, growing up, some of us, we fall for the American exceptionalism propaganda. But once you start seeing it for how it is, it's your duty to call it out when you see it. Don't try to ignore it because it's more comfortable that way. Call it out, stand on it, and then show us that you want to move this country forward. You feel me? But I don't know. Maybe I'm unpatriotic and all the other shit, bro.
Just that the military budget is bloated, and it is bloated, and suddenly you hate our troops. If you point out that Americans rank poorly on education, press freedom, or infant mortality compared to other developed countries, and you're suddenly ungrateful. Even liberals and progressives who critique America specifically because they want to improve it get branded as unpatriotic. Do you see how backwards that is? The messaging is clear. You can love America or you can criticize it. You can't do both. But in most healthy democracies, critique is understood as a form of patriotism. Wanting your country to live up to its own ideals isn't betrayal. It is the highest form of civic engagement. The pressure to never question America, to treat any criticism as an attack, to reflexively defend the status quo no matter how messed up it is because admitting a problem feels like admitting defeat, that social pressure is itself one of the most effective forms of propaganda there is, because it doesn't require a government agency or state-run media outlets. It's enforced by your neighbors and your coworkers, your family, and your own internalized guilt. Like I said at the beginning, I don't hate America. I want it to be better. And if that makes me un-American in your eyes, then, well, I think I kind of proved my point. It is the civic duty of every citizen to question what we've been taught, to explore outside the bubble, whether that's through reading, traveling, or learning other languages, using LingoPie, of course, and exposing ourselves to the perspectives that challenge our own assumptions. It's our duty to push back against propaganda and to exercise the very First Amendment rights that we claim to value. Because things don't have to be like this.
They really don't. That's one of the craziest parts too. It really don't have to be this fucked up. It really doesn't have to be this bad. I know they convinced you that we can't make a change and that it's kind of the way it is. It's gonna be how it's gonna be. But you gotta remember the role that you played in it. You even having that mindset of fuck it, I'm gonna just participate in it because I can't change it. You helping it. You feel me? That defeatist mindset is helping it. Try to do your part. Try to talk to the people you can talk to. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, some people are lost causes. You can't help them. You feel me? But the ones that have some type of semblance of reason, talk to them, conversate with them, and try to guide them in the right path. And you can't force them to drink the water, but you could lead them there. You know what I'm saying? And it's just like, I think more people are criticizing Trump, but they're not criticizing how Trump got to the point he got to. You get what I'm saying? I know it's like, what you got to do with Trump? Well, he's the current president, and you feel me? We're in a fucked up situation because of him. So with that, people are mad at Trump, but they're not thinking, damn, how did someone like Trump even get into office? Like, where did it go wrong at? And they can't seem to connect the dots of, you're one of the reasons why he was able to get in office. You feel me? You didn't call him out when he was racist. You didn't, you know what I'm saying? You never questioned why he said the things he said. You feel me? So it's like, a part of me is like, yeah, but there's a pathway out of this. But another part of me is just like, they're going to wait until someone else comes in 10 years down the line, 20 years down the line, and it's going to be another cycle again. Unless, America collapses and we're all like cooked or something. I don't know.
Can be better. But we have to first recognize the propaganda.
Hold on, my shit just, hold on.
To be like this. They can be better. But we have to first recognize the propaganda and be honest with ourselves in order to get there. If you guys enjoyed this video, please smash that like button, share this with someone who needs to hear it, and if you want to support my work, you
Hey, shout out Holy Kool-Aid for the video. You did your thing. I would say ain't gonna lie, he put some good stuff in here that's gonna have me thinking, and hopefully it has you thinking also. I don't really got too much to say except just keep your eyes open, keep your ears open, keep your mouth shut, you know what I'm saying? And pay attention to the things you gotta pay attention to. I'm gone. Peace.